wrote this quite a while ago. I don't have little kids anymore, might be obvious, and I don't live in Calgary, so just to let you know. It's called Putting Down Roots. By the time I was 13, our military family had moved 6 times. My oldest son, now 11, has moved 4 times. As a child, the pain of being uprooted is eased by potential friends found waiting in the classroom. Adult moves are more solitary. 4 years ago, when we moved from the quiet east coast of Canada to the metropolis of Detroit, I grasped for the familiar as I wallowed in the choices and experiences of our new home. Endless shops and malls were on every corner, very few public buildings or parks. With no close friends to swap experiences, I found myself getting excited when the doorbell rang. The huge garden of our new house had been untended for a few months. The flower beds were a mass of tangles and unfamiliar flowers. Tentatively, I began pulling what I thought were weeds. None of the flower beds in nearby yards were as ornate, but when I saw a neighbor, I would lead them over to identify a plant. They weren't much help. I was on my own. With my husband and 2 older children off working or playing, 3-year-old Christopher and I spent our days digging and weeding. If 2 unfamiliar plants were too close together, I would decide which looked more weed-like and pull it, while Christopher delightfully collected worms. As fall approached, I dug deeper in the earth, getting braver, or to be truthful, more frustrated. In desperation, I began pulling up whole clumps. Finally, I had a bit of room to see some of the flowers. With a few empty spaces, I could buy some of my favorites. I dug deep holes for them. Christopher threw in worms for good luck while I carefully nestled them in. Within days, the newcomers had put down roots and were becoming part of this garden. Meanwhile, the huge vegetable garden lay bare. When we arrived, it had been too late in the summer to plant vegetables. As fall approached, I turned the earth in the vegetable garden. To Christopher's delight, the earth swarmed with earthworms, which boded well for next summer. Winter passed, and our family fit ourselves into the culture so similar to Canada, yet subtly different. Our school-aged children learned the Star-Spangled Banner and the Pledge of Allegiance. Christopher created 2 imaginary friends who had their own special car that drove beside ours wherever we went, very appropriate for Motor City. I found a few kindred spirits who understood the transition I was experiencing. I discovered the special coffee shops, the bakeries and delis that make a new city your own. As soon as the soil warmed up, I was out digging again. By midsummer, the flower beds were lush and colorful, the vegetable garden was teeming, pumpkins were taking over the yard and the carrots recovering from the rabbit invasion. Soon we had hundreds of tomatoes and lots of excuses to visit neighbors to hand out extras. We improved the flower beds, rebuilt the rabbit-proof fence, and built raised vegetable beds, all the while not knowing this second summer was to be our last there. Even when we knew we would be leaving, we continued building and planting. 2 years later, we were living in Alberta. When we arrived, I immediately turned to the tiny garden of my new home and remembered our first summer in Detroit. While digging in the garden there, I thought I was only restoring order and beauty. Now I know I was putting down roots and making that city my home. As I look around my Calgary garden, I know what I need to do. I figure it will take about 2 growing seasons.